Jake was known throughout the valley as an honest man. From the time he was a boy, his name carried a quiet respect. Merchants trusted him with their ledgers. Neighbors trusted him with their homes. Travelers trusted him with their stories. Jake never cheated, never lied, never took what wasn't his. Honesty, to him, wasn't a performance, it was simply who he was. And for many years, that was enough. What Jake didn't know was that honesty is not tested when life is easy. It is tested when temptation whispers softly, disguising itself as opportunity. One autumn morning, a royal messenger arrived in the valley with news that made the ground seem to hum beneath Jake's feet. The aging king, childless and weary, had decided to choose his successor not by blood, but by character. The messenger announced the trial. Each selected citizen would be given a bag and sent to the royal fields beyond the mountains. They were instructed to fill their bags with stones from the field and return within 3 days. The stones would be examined by the king himself. The one deemed worthy would inherit the throne. No explanation was given. Some laughed. Some scoffed. Some doubted the king's sanity. But Jake felt something stir in his chest. A chance. He thought not for power, but to serve, to lead with honesty, to protect the valley he loved. Jake was chosen. On the morning of departure, the king's final words echoed in his mind. Your future will be shaped not by what you carry, but by how you choose. Jake began the journey with a light heart and steady steps. Along the road, he met other participants. Some joked about the absurdity of carrying stones. Others speculated wildly about hidden meanings. By the end of the first day, Jake reached the royal field. It was vast, stretching farther than the eye could see. Stones of every kind covered the land. Dull gray rocks, smooth pebbles, jagged shards, and stones that shimmered faintly in the sun. Jake knelt and picked up a stone. It felt ordinary. He placed it in his bag. At first, his thoughts were clear and simple. I will do exactly as I was told. But as the hours passed, he noticed something strange. Some stones, when turned just right, reflected light in a way that looked valuable. Jake frowned. They're just stones, he muttered. Yet the thought lingered. That night, as he rested beside his fire, he overheard whispers from nearby camps. I heard these stones can be sold for a fortune. One man said, imagine the life we could live. Another replied, luxury, comfort, freedom. Jake turned away, annoyed. But the seed had been planted. The next day, Jake returned to the field. He filled his bag steadily, choosing stones that were solid and heavy, proof of his effort. Then his eyes landed on a pile of unusually smooth stones, polished by time. One decision you make could open the door to success or close it forever. The thought startled him. He didn't know where it came from, but it echoed louder than the wind. Another thought followed. What if the king expects us to be clever? Jake hesitated. He had always been honest, but honesty had always been easy. No one had ever placed a crown at the end of his choices before. He lifted one of the smooth stones. It was lighter than the others. Just one, he told himself. It doesn't change who I am. He placed it in his bag. Thought became words inside his mind. Words became justification. Justification became action. By the end of the day, Jake's bag was full, but not with the stones he originally intended to carry. On the third day, the journey back felt heavier than the bag on his shoulders. Each step stirred an unease he couldn't explain. Even our worst enemy can't harm us like our own negative thoughts can. Jake reached the palace gates at sunrise. The king sat upon his throne, eyes sharp despite his age. One by one, the candidates emptied their bags onto the marble floor. Some had carried random stones. Some had carefully selected shiny ones. Some had even tried to hide extra pieces in their clothing. When Jake's turn came, his heart pounded. He untied the bag. The stones spilled out smooth, polished, gleaming. The king studied them in silence. Then he sighed. These, the king said, lifting one stone, are worthless. Jake's breath caught. They are stones shaped by surface beauty alone, empty inside, useless for building. The king gestured toward another pile rough. Heavy stones brought by a quiet farmer. These, he said, are foundation stones. The king turned back to Jake. For years, you lived honestly, but you failed to guard your thoughts when it mattered most. Jake fell to his knees. I thought, he began. Yes, the king interrupted gently. You thought. The king's voice echoed through the hall. Thought becomes words. Words become actions. Actions become habits. And habits shape our future. The crown was placed upon another's head. Jake was dismissed. He left the palace with empty hands and a heavier heart than he had ever known. Years passed. Jake returned to his valley, older and quieter. He lived simply, working the land, teaching children to read, helping neighbors as he always had. But he never forgot. When young people asked him why he never sought wealth or power, he would smile sadly and say, our thoughts are like seeds. One day they grow into our future. He taught them that shortcuts often lead to empty bags and deep regret. That greed promises luxury but delivers loss. That integrity must be guarded every day, not just when it is easy. And most of all, he taught them this: honesty is not a sprint. It is a marathon. You must hold your values until the very end of the journey to receive the reward. Jake never became a king, but he became something else. A living reminder that mastering your future begins with mastering your mind.